Well, it's certainly good to be in the Lord's house this morning. It's good to see everybody out. Thanks to our visitors for being here this morning as well. As we get started here this morning, some of y'all saw me making faces and fighting something over here by the organ. We said quite a while back, I guess it was around close to Christmas time or shortly thereafter, I told our kids and I had announced from the pulpit that I was going to start trying to keep up with it. Anytime some of our kids around here did something special, did something extra around the church, they got to put their name on a little piece of paper that looks like this and put it in my little box, and we were going to do it quarterly. So quarter ended in March, and of course I didn't do it last week because it was Easter, but the quarter did end, and I said we was going to draw a name out every quarter, and that kid was going to win an Amazon gift card. And some folks might think, what are you doing? Are you trying to bribe our kids to doing something? Absolutely. You caught me. If that's what it takes, I'm for it. Because you notice we've got a lot of young girls in our choir. We've got some young men that go around the church and do some things behind the scenes that nobody sees. And I want to foster that. I want people to want to do that. I want them to grow up doing that. I want them to realize that their pastor appreciates that and their church appreciates them doing that. If you enjoy seeing young people in the choir, say amen. Amen. How about that? They sing good. They help our choir look good, sing good, sound good, all that. They do a real good job, and we want them to know that we appreciate that. So I drew a name just a minute ago, and he's actually not here this morning, but that'll work out good. I'll see him Wednesday night. And Mr. Aiden won our drawing this quarter, so Kevin is outside on security. If he don't mind, oh, never mind, he snuck in. Let Aiden know. And some of y'all are thinking, what did Aiden do? Well, you might not have realized it, but there was a whole lot of limbs and stuff around the parsons, around the church from the ice storm that just magically disappeared. And I know some other guys were a part of that as well, but Aiden come up and he picked stuff up and hauled it off and cleaned and worked and did a whole lot that nobody asked him to do and asked for no recognition, and I'm doing it anyway. So we appreciate Aiden and all that he's done. So he won it this time around, and we'll empty the chest back out, and I've got those pieces of paper, so all of our young folks, anything extra that you do around here, if it's cleaning up around the church, if it's singing in the choir, if it's doing the announcements, if it's whatever it might be, if you want to jump up here and help Brother Johnny lead the music, I will personally pull his chair over here and let you stand in it and help him. And he said amen. He would love for anybody to jump up and be a part of that as well. We want to get our young folks involved around here. If you want to come up here during the week, it's just about summertime. If you want to come up here and help clean around the church, I'm sure Miss Judy and them would appreciate that as well. And that'd be a blessing just to jump in and help any way you can. Let me know if you do something, because if you don't, your name's not going to make it in the box, okay? So you got to make sure that I see it, somebody sees it, and we'll get your name in the box. And we'll draw again whenever that next quarter ends. I guess that'd be about the end of June, would it not? So we'll draw again there at the tail end of June, and we'll have another one, but I'll get Aiden his prize together, and we appreciate all that he did. If you've got your Bible this morning, go to the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter number 29. 2 Chronicles 29 this morning, as we continue to preach through Matthew using the Old Testament, which is about as backwards as it could be, but it works out real well, don't it? So we're going to be in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, looking at this next man, this next king that's in the lineage of Jesus Christ. And you'll find him as the name Hezekiah here in the text. Hezekiah here has got a pickle that he's found himself in. We didn't preach it last week being Easter Sunday morning. The Lord led us into a different direction there as we talked about the person of Jesus a good bit. But the Sunday morning previous to that, we talked about that king by the name of Ahaz. And if you remember anything about Ahaz, you ought to just remember the fact that he was a real wicked fellow. Well, Ahab was the wicked king of Israel, and Ahaz was the wicked king of Judah. Together they make quite the pair. They were in a big old mess, and we know that Ahaz has done some terribly wicked, no good, rotten things. He has left his boy Hezekiah a terrible situation to inherit here. I started this off. I'd like to see first this morning, or let me just give you my title. That'd be good. I titled it this morning, Prepping for National Revival. How about that? You wouldn't think you could find national revival in 2 Chronicles, could you? But here it is. It's right here in the middle of the text, because if anything is true about Judah when Hezekiah took over, is that they needed revival. They needed somebody to come in and fix the mess they were in. If we need anything as a country, it is national revival. That seems to be what everybody is preaching, everybody is pushing, and has been my entire life, praying that God will give us another national revival, that He'll turn things back unto Himself, that He will get rid of all of the stuff that's going on in our country that don't need to be here anymore and lead us back into love relationship with Him. We definitely need national revival, and that's the same way that Judah is here in the text. So I believe what Hezekiah has done, Lord willing, I'll get about the first maybe 10, 11 verses this morning. But what he has done is he has laid some groundwork here to start national revival. Everybody prays for national revival, and they think that one of these days we're just going to wake up and God's going to be like, all right, the time is right. He's going to snap His fingers, and all of a sudden everybody's going to be on fire for God. I don't believe revival is going to take place that way in America. It doesn't take place like that in our churches, does it? Where does revival start in the church? In the home, in your own heart and in your homes, and then it comes and becomes a spirit inside of the church. It does not matter what kind of preacher you got. I love Brother Joey Wampler that's coming. He's a great man of God. He's helped me so much in his preaching, and he's helped me through some tough times when I was dealing with things in the ministry, and he'll be here next week. But it does not matter how many sermons he's got loaded and cocked and ready to go. It doesn't matter how wonderful they might be. If he shows up, he can preach his guts out and leave it all up here behind the pulpit. But if the spirit of revival has not already been fostered and built into our hearts and our homes, we will not have revival next week as a church. Do you understand that? We won't have it. Brother Joey is not the secret to revival. Whatever preacher you got. I could call back the biggest, best preacher of the day. I could call back Billy Sunday or somebody like that. They did not have the power to bring revival in and of themselves. It's not the man of God that brings revival. It is God Himself getting a hold of the folks, and people deciding they want revival and turning their lives over to Him and getting busy with Him and sanctifying themselves and getting themselves prepared and ready to have revival that brings revival. So what Hezekiah is just to do here in the text is he's about to lay some groundwork to set the stage for the revival that they need. We remember the pitiful state that Judah was in. Ahaz has messed this thing up real good. He's messed it up to a terrible point. It says the temple was closed. The valley of the son of Hinnom, if you remember that, is right outside of Jerusalem there. Was a little valley down there to the side where they were having child sacrifice and idol worship. They had different nations come in and take their people and leave and carry them away captive. They had armies come in and knock down towns and wreck villages and take their towns back to themselves and kill all the inhabitants. They had Israel, that was supposed to be the weaker side of the kingdom, come in and beat Judah in a fight and carry away captives and win that fight and become the stronger of the two kingdoms. Judah is in probably the worst state that it has been in quite some time. It's in a terrible place right now. There's mothers mourning their children. There's wives mourning their husbands that have died in wars. There's nothing good that we can think of to restore any hope to Judah. Nothing is going on that is good there. You look to the left, it's bad. You look to the right, it's bad. You look in front, it's bad. You look behind you, it's bad. You look up, it's bad. You look down, it's bad. Bad. Everywhere you look in the land of Judah was bad. They had no hope looking around at it. They didn't know what was going to happen. They were so upset with what they did. You remember what they did with Hezekiah when he died? They didn't even bury him with the kings. Because they was upset with what kind of king, or not Hezekiah, Ahaz. They were upset with what kind of king Ahaz was. They didn't even give him the honor of being buried with the other kings. They're in a bad, pitiful state right now, but now they're needing somebody to step in, something to change, because the way they're going right now just ain't going to get it done. Can we say that as a nation, America now, we all want something to change, do we not? Right? We would like to see America go back towards God. We would like to see some changes with some policies going on. We would love to see a good man of God get behind the Oval Office there, get behind the desk there, and be the one leading this country. And before you sit here and say, well, Trump is a great Christian man. Oh, I've been hurt some feelings right here. And I really don't want to break down our president because I voted for him twice. I'm glad he got it. He was a lot better than the alternative. But do not ever be fooled by the fact that you think Donald Trump is a great Christian man. If you don't believe me, look up his Truth Social post on Easter Sunday, when he's dropping F-bombs on Easter Sunday on social media for everybody to see. Okay? I'm not trying to take your precious leader, because a lot of folks think he's the second coming of Christ. I'm not trying to tear that away from you, but Donald Trump will not fix America. He might make it a little bit better. I understand that. I hope he does. But at the end of the day, the best president of the world cannot do the work that needs to be done, because the work that needs to be done is not a secular work, it's a spiritual work. God needs to get a hold to this place and bring it back to Him. I don't care if Donald Trump goes in there, drops gas back to a nickel a gallon. It ain't been that way in a long time. Anybody alive when it was still 25 cents a gallon? Some of y'all. Look at there. I don't know how long ago that was, but for my own safety, I'm going to say that was about 15 years ago. I don't want to date y'all too much and y'all get mad at me. It was a while ago. He could take gas all the way back to $0.25 a gallon. He could fix all the voting problems we got to make it where you got to have voter ID, all the elections can be fair as they can be. He could end every conflict that we have over the course of the world. He could get rid of terrorism. He could go and clean up Memphis and send the National Guard in to make it safe to walk down the alleyway at 1 a.m. in the morning. He could do all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, if God does not step in and get a hold of America, a vast majority of Americans are going to die and go to hell. That's bad, ain't it? That's bad, but that's where we're at. Have you noticed what's going on here in the text? I know I didn't read my text yet, but we know what's going on. We've been leading up to this for a while now. Who is supposed to be God's chosen people? The Jews, right? They live where? They live in the kingdom of Israel and they live in the kingdom of Judah. It's a split kingdom right now. These are God's chosen people. Matter of fact, Judah is more chosen than Israel because it's the tribe that God reserved for His sake, or for David, His servant's sake. This was supposed to be the blessed side of the kingdom here with Judah. These are supposed to be, if anybody on the face of the earth is supposed to be walking hand in hand with God, it ought to be the kingdom of Judah here in the text. But we find that Ahaz is taking them out of the hand of God and led them as far away as he possibly can. America, a country that was founded on people that loved God. Our money says, "In God we trust." Our pledge says, "One nation under God." We have God all woven all throughout the history of this country. But if you didn't know that, and you just looked at the state of our country right now, would you truly think that it's a Christian nation? And before you answer, can I give you a marker? Can I give you something to test it off of that is often a sign when a nation is away from God? Y'all remember way back when, let me do it this way. I'm going off script. That'll be okay. We got all day, don't we? Yeah, there we go. Why was Moses hid in the little ark of bulrushes there? Why did his mother have to hide him? Because Pharaoh was killing all the boys under 3 years old, right? Was Pharaoh a good king or a bad king in the eyes of God? Bad. Bad king kills babies. Fair? Why, when Jesus was born, did Joseph and Mary have to flee into Egypt and live there for a little while? Because Herod was killing all the babies because he was worried about Jesus. Bad king killing babies. What is America doing every single day? That's not good company to be in. It's not good company to be in. That's bad. That's bad. Let me give you another one. Why was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? Sin. Homosexuality. Sodomites, right? God did not like them. God was against them. God sent judgment unto them. So far we have two pictures of kingdoms or nations that were judged of God. One of them was killing babies. The other one had a great multitude or sin of sodomy in the midst. What do we have in America? A great sin of sodomy, do we not? We are lining up. Oh, I'm going to hurt some hearts, and I really don't want to do that because I love my country. I'm a red-bleeding American. I'm red-blooded, hot-blooded American, whatever you want to call it. I'm as American as you can get. Trust me on that. Darn was in my office a little bit ago, and she dumped an envelope, and there was about 4 constitutions fell out of that envelope on the table there because I was having those constitutions given out to youth kids. I love America. Don't think I'm against America. We're having a God and country service in the middle of May. I love my country. But if we'll be real honest and we'll separate ourselves out, do we line up more with the country of Israel or Judah when they're on fire with God and they're on good terms with Him and they're doing well? Do we line up more with them on that, or do we line up more with them when they're following the leadership of Ahaz or they're following some other wicked leadership? Which one of those do we line up with as a country more right now? It's not the good one. It's not the good one. Seems to me like a lot of times we have to try to remind ourselves that America is a country that was founded on the things of God. Seems like a lot of times we forget that. We forget it. We forget that we're supposed to be a godly Christian nation. We're in a bad spot right now. Is it fair that we need national revival? Is it fair to say that we need God to step in and shake the very foundation of this place and get us back where we're supposed to be? We ought to have that. We need that. We're not going to be in a good place if we don't have that. I'm not sure that America will ever get back to its former glory if God does not step in and do something. We need national revival. We're in a bad place just like the nation of Judah is in a bad place. Something's got to change. Something has got to give here. It's bad everywhere you look. We took our kids to the zoo Friday. On the way to the zoo, Sue's sitting there and she's talking to me and she said, "Did you ever hear if the zoo improved their security after the bomb threat was called on them last week?" I'm like, "Nope, I ain't heard nothing at all." But here I am taking my kids to the Memphis Zoo and they had bomb threats called on them last week. What are you going to do by bombing the zoo? You going to kill the elephants? Like, what's the whole purpose of that there? Did you ever think you was going to live in a nation where you had to worry about something like that? Where you can't even take your kids to the zoo without worrying? I would venture to say that most of us in here, we have a little present, a little happy that we keep in our vehicles or ladies in your purse, and you don't leave home without it in case something happens and you might need it. Right? Did you ever think you'd get to the point where you needed that? Did you ever get to the point where you thought that you needed to lock your doors at night? Sue lives in a family compound, and it's got this great big chain link fence around it, and if you look at the top of it, the barbed wire looks like prison fence barbed wire, but instead of leaning this way to keep folks from climbing in, it's leaned this way to keep them from getting out. I should have seen the warning signs when I come in the driveway. It's all good. It's worked out well for us. But they've got this fenced-in area and all that, and when we got married, we live on a highway, and we're, 60 yards out of our front doorstep. The road is there, and I told Sue she needed to make sure she locked her car and locked the door before she went to bed. I'm not even sure she knew that doors locked because they never had to lock them over there. They never had to worry about anything like that. They didn't have any idea. They didn't lock cars. They went on vacation. They left the door wide open on vacation. It didn't matter. The world is changing. It's not as nice and friendly as it used to be anymore. I remember growing up, and when I first started driving, Mama used to always tell me, you got to be careful stopping on the side of the road to help somebody out. How many of us have been driving down the road and seen somebody that's pulled off on the side having vehicle troubles, and you pull in behind them and you go out and you help them change the tire, or you even would give them a ride to go get some gas? Are you scared to do that now? Yeah. Because now you get out to help that single mother that's on the side of the road messed up, and her buddy and 3 others come out of the woods and take you. Y'all remember when it used to be okay to let your kids go to the ball games by themselves? You didn't have to worry about anything happening to them. But now you're scared to death to let them off the child leash and they're 17 years old and you're still worried about them? What happened? A nation that's supposed to be founded on the things of God has slipped away and gotten farther and farther and farther away. Judah here is supposed to be hand in hand with God. They're God's chosen people, but all they've done is gotten farther and farther and farther away to where they're in a pitiful state here in the text, and something has got to change. And then Ahaz is going to die, and we find in verse 1, Hezekiah began to reign when he was 5 and 20 years old. And he reigned 9 and 20 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. here comes your change. Here comes somebody that's going to change this place for the better. Here comes somebody that God has chosen exactly for this purpose. You saw the pitiful state. Now can I say that we see the preferred heir to the throne? Do you believe me when I tell you that God chose Hezekiah to be the king? Can I prove it to you? What was Ahaz doing in the valley of the son of Hinnom? What was he doing? Who was he sacrificing? His children. The king Ahaz was taking his sons and daughters down to the valley of the son of Hinnom, where his Molech statue was that he would light on fire, and he would take those children and lay them on the burning arms of that molten statue until they perished in the flames. Sounds like a wicked man, does it not? He had all of these sons or daughters, however many it was. The Bible doesn't tell us explicitly how many it was. He was killing all those off. He had saved one that was going to be his heir. What happened in chapter 28? Israel broke through. Somebody out of Israel came and killed the king's son. And now all of a sudden the only one left to take the throne is who? Hezekiah. Do you not think that God's hand might have been all over that to set it up to where the only child that didn't want to end up being like his daddy was the one that ended up on the throne? You see, there's a reason that other boy Ahaz had not sacrificed him to Molech, because he needed an heir. That was his chosen heir, but God said, that's not my chosen heir. So he let Israel come through and take that boy to leave just Hezekiah. He was the one that God wanted. Can you see here the complete 180 that's about to take place? Ahaz is literally having child sacrifices to Molech and letting everybody do whatever in the world they want to do. He is taking the things out of the house of God, and he is getting rid of them and selling them and using them to pay everybody else off. He is doing nothing good to the kingdom of God. And now all of a sudden Hezekiah comes in here, and the very second verse there says that he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David did. We could have set them up and said, all right, let's get 10 men across here. I want you to pick daddy, and I want you to pick son. If Ahaz would have been the daddy, Hezekiah, this complete 180 of him, probably wouldn't have been the pick to be his boy. We probably would have looked at it and said, there's no way that Hezekiah, as good as he's going to be, could come out of Ahaz. There's no way. I mean, Hezekiah definitely had to be the black sheep of the family here. For whatever reason, he lived under this oppression and saw what his daddy was doing and realized that he wanted nothing to do with it. He watched how that his daddy Ahaz running into the ground and forsook the things of God and went with all these other little g gods, and he saw what happened to the kingdom because of that. And he said, whatever happens, I'm not going to be like that. I've talked to plenty of kids and young people while I was a youth pastor, associate pastor, who have had things, and these are not just church kids, these are kids in high schools and everything else, that have a family back home that is not how it ought to be. They're living in a home that is broken. They're living in an alcoholic's home. They're living in an abusive home. They're living in a place that nobody would want to live. Nobody would want to grow up. And when you talk to those kids, you know what they say? I just don't want to end up like that. I did marriage counseling for a young couple one time, premarital counseling. And they come in, and normally the best way to do it is if they've got good godly parents and a good relationship, you can point to that and say, do you see how they're doing? Look at your grandparents. They've been married for 50-something years. What a testimony that is. That's a wonderful thing, and you can point to that and say how wonderful it is. But for this particular couple, I got to that point in the little premarital counseling guide where it said bring in examples, and I honestly looked at them and I just said this: do you want a marriage like your parents have had? And they were like, nope. I don't want to live in a broken home. I don't want to live in an adulterous home. I don't want to be a part of that. And I was able to look at those kids and just say, okay, you've seen what it was like to live in that. Now don't make your home that way. Hezekiah here has seen Ahaz and the way Ahaz's home has been. Can you imagine Hezekiah's there as he's a young kid and he's playing, and Daddy Ahaz just walks through and picks up brother. Carries brother out down to the valley of the son of Hinnom, and brother never comes back. Can you imagine how that affected Hezekiah as a little boy? Brother Easton, why do you keep harping on that? Because I need us to understand how bad things were for them, to realize that God's hand has been resting on Hezekiah for a long time, and He has set him up with a purpose, and the purpose is going to be that Hezekiah is about to fix all this stuff that has gone wrong, because God is on his side and God is there to help him. Hezekiah has been picked out. He has been chosen. He's preferred heir to God. Hezekiah has looked at it and says, I don't want to do anything like Ahaz has done it. I don't want to go after little g gods. I don't want to do this child sacrifice. I don't want to be invaded by all of our neighbors. I don't want this and I don't want that. I just want to go the complete opposite of Ahaz, and the complete opposite of Ahaz was to go to God. That's a bad place to be, where somebody can go complete opposite of you and go towards God. That means you're going completely away from God. You see the preferred heir. And then I want you to see the precedence of the Lord's house. Verse 3. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of the Lord and repaired them. Can you imagine that? This boy is 25 years old when he takes the throne, and the doors to the Lord's house have been closed. You think America's bad now, what do you think would happen if every church closed their doors? Wow. That's how bad it was in the land of Judah. God's chosen people and the doors are closed. Nobody's getting to go in. Nobody's getting to keep up temple worship. Nobody's getting to go in there and pray. Nobody's getting to go in there and get help. Nobody is able to reach out and get a hold of. You do remember in the Old Testament, they didn't have the ability to go directly unto the Father through Jesus, the only mediator between God and man. They had to go into that, and they would go to the Ark of the Covenant where the presence of God was sitting on top of that thing, and the priest would go in and make intercession, and they had all the sacrifices and all that set up. That relationship they had was keyed out by the temple. They didn't have the ability really to do it without outside of that. And now it's closed down. By the temple being closed, we realize that there's nobody that's in communication with God. There's no help given. They're in a bad, terrible place right now, a pitiful state. But the very first thing Hezekiah does is come in and open the doors. He comes in and opens the doors. It was the first action that he did. Have you thought how his constituents might have asked or answered or thought about that? All these folks that he's over, wrap your head around this. We just put a wicked king Ahaz in the ground. He's got one side of Jerusalem over here that is sacrificing children of Molech. He's brought in little g gods. Our wives, our sons, and our daughters have been taken away captive. They have been killed. We've lost towns to the Philistines that they come and took over and carried them back and made them towns their towns. We're in all these terrible things that are going on. It's as awful as it could be. We finally get a new king, and we think, yes, let Hezekiah come in and fix this thing. And everybody's sitting there watching him, expecting him to go in there, shut down the child sacrifice, expecting him to get the army to go and to fight and get their loved ones back. And what does Hezekiah do? He just opens up the Lord's house. Can you imagine how mad some people would be? It's fitting here. What is President Trump doing on May 17th? He's rededicating America as one nation under God. That's why we're having a God and Country service on that Sunday. The Sunday right there before Memorial Day, which is next Sunday or next Monday. He's rededicating America. Have you heard anybody upset about that? I'm sure there's plenty. If they don't like the fact that our money says in God we trust, the fact that our pledge says one nation under God, if they don't like us talking about God in the schoolhouse, if they don't like anything about that, I'm going to say a national day of prayer on the mall, which is their giant green area there in Washington, D.C. I'm going to say when he hosts that thing and everybody comes out to pray over our nation and rededicate it as one nation under God, I'm going to say there's a lot of people that are going to be upset about that because they're probably sitting here thinking, Trump, what are you doing? Gas is $3.70 a gallon. We're at war with Iran. Cuba's breathing down our necks. Russia and Ukraine are fighting. China's sending spy balloons over here. Y'all remember those spy balloons? I thought that was so ignorant.
Everybody is losing their minds because there's a balloon floating across the sky thinking that China is getting all their secrets, but then they carry this China spyware in their pocket every day of their life. That's just ignorant to me. Don't make no sense. We're going to sit here and act like that spy balloon way up there in the atmosphere is going to get more data than this. Let me say it. Most of us have probably got our credit card information in this, and our birthday in this, and our mama's birthday, so we don't forget when we need to call her and make sure that everything's good. We've got our anniversary put in there. We've got all of our sensitive passwords put in there. Some of us probably got our Social Security number tied into this thing somewhere in case we forget it. But yet we're worried about a balloon floating through the sky. That's just about ignorant to me. You not think that everybody's going to sit there and say, Trump, we got all these other problems going on, and now you're going to use all of our resources and all of our time to bring all of these Christian folks to Washington, D.C., right here on the mall, and rededicate America under God. What in the world is that going to do to fix our problems? You not think there's people that are going to be saying something like that? What do you think they did in Hezekiah's day? They got a new king. Hezekiah, get over there and get rid of that statue of Molech. Hey, my boy's been missing. He was taken captive over here. Go get him back. Hey, I used to live down there in that town that the Philistines took. Let's go get it back. Hezekiah says, I hear y'all, but I think I'll just go open up the doors to the Lord's house instead. And everybody's sitting there like, what in the world is that going to do? Everything that needs to happen. Everything that needs to happen. It's going to fix it all. One step at a time. It's going to be the ticket. You ever seen somebody line up those dominoes and they've got that big old long chain, you knock the first domino down and it fall down through there? Didn't it make you mad when you was a kid and you had about 100 of them things lined up and you was about to put the third or fourth one in and your little cousin comes through and knocks them down right in the middle and just messes the whole thing up and you got to start over? You ever get mad about that? He's lining some things up, and the first domino to get started to turn this country back around towards God was all keyed in onto the doors to the Lord's house being open. Because Hezekiah knew no matter what he tried to do within himself, if he did not have God on his side, that he would not be able to do nothing. It would all fall flat. The very first thing he did, in the first year, in the first month, he wasted no time. Open the doors. Open the doors. All these folks are looking at him opening the door saying, there's so many more pressing issues here. There's so much more that could have happened to fix this place. It's about like when you got some guests coming over to the house and your wife comes in and says, I need you to help me straighten up the house. Let me put a poll in here. I'm going to get all us men in trouble right here before Mother's Day. It's okay. You got a couple weeks to make it all up to her. Wives, when you ask your darling, loving, wonderful husband to help you straighten up the house because you got guests coming over, what do you mean? I'm assuming you mean help me maybe take out the trash, maybe sweep, maybe mop, maybe clean the kitchen a little bit, maybe knock down the cobwebs in the corner. Yes, we all got them. Don't look at me like y'all ain't got them too. Everybody's got them. If you don't, invite me to your house. I promise I'll find something somewhere. Because nobody cleans under the fridge. Anybody clean under the fridge? That's what I thought. Your darling wife has told you to do all this. Now, men, when your wife asks you to clean up the house because guests are coming over, it does not mean that it's time to go trim the shrubs and clean the gutters. That means that that's not what she wants done. She's got other things that she wants you to do. Sue told me one time, she said, I want you to help me straighten up the house because we got folks coming over. She walked outside a little bit later, I'm standing on the roof. She looked at me and said, what are you doing? I just asked you to help straighten up the house. I'm like, well, we had this limb fall out of this tree and it just looks bad. And then the gutters was nasty and then we had leaves in the valley. So I got my blower and I done wasted 2 hours working on all this stuff that didn't make no hill of beans difference to her. Reese, what in the world are you trying to say? I'm trying to say that when Hezekiah opened up the house's doors, everybody looked at it and said, it don't matter. That's not important. That's not what we need done. We need you to fix these other issues. But Hezekiah knew in his mind that that truly was the issue. Because the rest of that mess wouldn't have happened if the doors had not been closed. If they'd have stayed open and temple worship would have kept up, then whoever was there to lead them into that worship of Molech, somebody would have come out of the Lord's house, one of them priests would have come out and said, no, we ain't doing that. No, right here in the law it says we ain't doing that. What happened to the point in time when we quit having good Christian brothers and sisters and iron sharpeneth iron, and now all of a sudden we're so scared we're going to offend somebody that we don't have it in us to tell them they need to straighten up on something? Now, you can do it with grace. We can do it with grace, right? I'm not saying to go in there and beat somebody down, but there used to be a checks and balances system on this, and we kept each other in check and made sure everybody was doing right. Ain't there no more. Everything that's going on in the land of Judah, all the problems they're going through, I would venture to say that the Lord's house was not even a blip on their radar. They never even thought about it. The vast majority of people today, they have absolutely no concerns about God's house because they're too worried about everything else that's going on in our country. I would bet there's somebody out there right now that is using $3.70 a gallon gas as an excuse not to go to the Lord's house because gas is too expensive to drive all the way to the church house. No, brother, these people don't make excuses like that. You got my back? Okay. No, people won't make excuses like that. Y'all remember what happened when COVID came out? All of a sudden it was too dangerous to go to the church house, but we still went to work in Walmart and everywhere under the sun. Is that good enough, or I need to go on? I'm just saying. If there is an opportunity for somebody to use someone's excuse not to go to the Lord's house and it not be important to them anymore, guess what we're going to do? We're going to double down and use that excuse. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. They're sitting there thinking there's all this other stuff going on. The Lord's house is not important. Hezekiah, it's your day. We just put the crown on your head. What are you going to do first? Are you going to go fix Molech worship? Are you going to go get our captives back? Are you going to get them cities back? And he sits there saying, he says, nope. I think I'll just open up the church house. Everybody's like, what in the world are you thinking? Of all that's going on around here, I ain't worried about that old building. There's so many people in America now who want to know why America's in a mess. It's because we don't care about the Lord's house anymore. It's because they don't care about His Word anymore. It's because they don't care about living right and living well. It would fix so many problems, would it not? People want to know why there's riots and all this mess going on. People want to know why there's folks dressed like dogs being walked down the road on a leash. Because they ain't been in the Lord's house none. Because they ain't going to the church house and letting God get a hold of them and fix that mess. What is the only answer to sin in human flesh? The love of Christ when He went to the cross and He died for us. Apart from that, there is no medicine that will fix it. You can dope up on whatever antipsychotic medicine they got now. I don't know what all that stuff is. I'm not a medical person, but you can put all that stuff in your body that you want to, and at the end of the day, it's not going to fix sin in your life. Christ is all that fixes that. If the problem with America is the fact that we have gotten away from the things of God, then you can put whatever else you want to in it. But until we fix the issue and get back to God and get back to a sense of national revival, it is not going to work. Anybody heard Trump talking about his tariffs replacing income tax? Anybody excited about that? Oh, yeah. If you ain't excited about less taxes, then you ain't American. But here's the deal. Uncle Sam could give you the other third of your check back, and everybody might be happy for a little while, but this wicked human flesh and sin nature we got is still going to have us living in a wicked nation. If we do not get the hand of God a hold of our country, whatever we do, whatever the White House does, whatever the politicians do, it's not going to make a difference. We need God to be in the middle of this. They have absolutely no desire to go and to fix the Lord's house. They don't care about it. They haven't missed it while it's closed. A lot of folks today, they ain't been to the church in so long, they don't even remember what time services start. They ain't studying that. They're not worried about the things of God. They don't care about Sunday school. They don't even know where their Bible's at this morning. They ain't worried about none of that, but we glued into the Facebook screen trying to figure out what Trump's going to do next and if the 10th point of the Iran's peace deal was met or not. Did y'all read their list of demands? $2 million a tanker to go through the straits. Kind of sounds like highway robbery to me, don't it? The way I see it right now, we was getting it for free. What had to happen? Why do we got to pay $2 million protection fee? But I also think Trump's playing checkers, everybody else is playing chess. Go ahead and get ready. I'm calling it right here in front of God, Facebook, and everybody. He's setting that up on purpose to make it hard to get oil from Iran because he's got something up his sleeve to make people want to buy from America instead to dodge the $2 million per tanker. You heard it here first. So when it happens, you'll think that I'm a prophet or something. He has a track record for doing that. But it doesn't matter what he does over there. It doesn't matter what policies we try to pass. It doesn't matter anything that we do. If we do not get back to God, this place is still going to be a mess. Why was he so caught up on fixing the things in God's house? Why was the first part of his business to open the doors to the Lord's house? Because he knew that was the key to fixing all of this. He knew the foundation had to be steady. He knew that when he got rid of all that other stuff, the folks were going to look for something to do, and they needed to have the Lord's house to get to. He knew that they didn't get this thing settled out and fixed right there at the beginning, that whatever he tried to build was going to fall apart at the end of it. He could sit there and have the greatest army. He could go get those cities back. He could go get those captives back. He could get rid of Molech. He could do everything that he wanted to do. But if the folks did not go and give their hearts back to God and as a nation turned back to Him, what was going to happen? Somebody else was going to make another idol. Somebody else was going to do just like they've done all throughout history, and they were going to go against God, and God was going to send punishment, chastisement, and judgment on them again. They're going to end up in the same spot. Fair? Why were they here? Why were they in this type of trouble right now? Let me find it here. Verse number 10. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I'll tell you what. Now, I'll go to verse number 6. Go to verse number 6. For our fathers have trespassed and done that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord our God, and have forsaken Him, have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord, and turned their backs. And they have shut up the doors of the porch and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense or offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto the God of Israel. Wherefore the wrath of the Lord was upon Judah and Jerusalem, and He hath delivered them to trouble, to astonishment and to hissing. Mockery is what that word means. As you see with your eyes. If the whole nation did not turn around and quit going after everything else and get back towards God, He was still going to be sending judgment on them. It didn't matter if they went and got the captives back and the towns back. God would have just sent somebody else as a judgment on them. The problem with it wasn't that they had these captives taken away and that they had these cities captured. It wasn't that they lost all these people in these battles. What caused every bit of that was the fact that they turned their backs on God. You want to know what the problem with America is? There's a bunch of them, but let me give you one, and I think it'll sum a bunch of them up. One of the biggest problems we have is I believe that America is reaping what we sowed when we have gotten away from God over the years in the past, and now we're dealing with some of God's judgment on us for that. You think so, Brother Easton? Mm-hmm. I truly do. I truly do. Everybody wants to say, God bless America, and I hope He does. But ask yourself, is America really a country that God ought to bless right now? It's kind of a sobering thought, ain't it? And I hate that. Man, I'd love to go in there and knock them all on the head and fix this whole thing if I could. I don't want to see this thing burned. That's about like them folks that would want to see Trump fail just because he's Trump. That's like asking your pilot to make a bad landing when you're on his plane. That's ignorant. I don't want to go down. I live here. I don't want this thing to go down. I'm not trying to be mean and bad to America. I just want us to understand this morning that just like Judah was in a pickle, America is in a pickle. And until we open the doors of the Lord's house and get people back into the Lord's house and turn the nation back towards God, whatever else we do will not work. The answer is not in Washington. The answer is not Elon Musk and Doge or Dodge or whatever it was, and they come in and checked out where all the money was. I'd love to see all the people from the Epstein files go to jail too. I'd love to see all that. But they can do every single bit of that, and at the end of the day, until we get to the root of that wickedness and get away from that and get everybody back towards the house of God, into the things of God, there's just going to be another root grow up. There'll be another wicked one come. There'll be something else bad that happens. That's why he was so keyed in to make sure that he had the Lord's house open before he did anything. Because he knew if there was going to be any real change, it was going to happen in the hearts of man, and it was going to be caused by God's hand. It's still the same today. The foundation had to be steady. It had to have something that was going to go in and actually really incite change. You ever I want to be sensitive on this. I have a friend. I'm hurrying, I promise. I'm fixing to shut her down here real soon. I've got a friend that has struggled. He's a good bit older than me. He struggled with drug addictions in the past. And you would think he did good, and he would do good for 2-3 years. The next thing you know, boom, he'd fall out again. And then he would do good for a little while, and boom, he'd fall out again. And he kept telling everybody he had changed. He kept telling people it was different, that he had decided that he wasn't going to be that way anymore, over and over and over again. And then all throughout my life, it's been one time after another, good fall, good fall, good fall, over and over and over and over again. He's still reciting that or redoing that same pattern today. But then I know another man who's a pastor on the Texas-Arkansas line right now. And he was a drug addict at one point in time, and God got a hold of his life, and he got saved, and he quit drugs, and guess what? That change was permanent. It seems to me people have a bad habit of saying that we're going to change when we never really change, but when God gets in the middle of a situation, people really do change. When somebody does get saved by the grace of God, it is a difference. It is a real change. It is a lasting change. You can see the evidence of it in their lives. He knew if he was going to change this country, he needed the type of change that didn't just last 2 or 3 weeks. He needed it to be a lifelong change, and that only happens when folks get a hold of God. The foundation had to be steady, and then you'll find that the doors had to be framed up. It says he opened the doors of the house of the Lord and he repaired them. He opened the doors. For years the doors have been closed, but now they're open. If churches are going to have any impact in this world today, people have to realize we've got to open door to them. They have to know that they can come to this place and get some help. They have to know that we're not going to stop them at the door and tell them, no, you try somewhere else. The door has got to be open for them. I understand they might not look like us, they might not act like us, they might not smell like us, they might not believe like us. But at the end of the day, the doors have got to be open. Because if Christ died for all and put no stipulations on that, then what business do we have putting stipulations on who can come? The answer is none. Now, before anybody hits me in Facebook land, I'm not saying that you let people bring things of the world into your church and change your church. The church was not built to change to be like the world. The church was built to change those from the world to be like Christ. We're wrong to expect sinners to come in knowing what it is to be a Christian. They're a lost sinner. They don't understand it. But we ought to have grace and mercy and help them and show them to a darling Savior that died for them and help them be better. Then they ought to get better. The doors got to be open. But then it says he repaired the doors. What do doors do? They have 2 main functions. Doors work to let somebody in, and they also work to what? Keep folks out. He repaired the doors because he needed to let some people in, but he repaired the doors because some things needed to be kept out. The church is losing its effectiveness in the day we live because people have mastered the first part of that and have failed severely on the second part. There are things that do not have a place in the house of God. The pastor's ego has no place in the house of God. It shouldn't be my show. This is all about the Lord. It ain't about me. Any church that's got a pastor that's selling merch and acts like he's the second coming of Christ, I would run from it as fast as I can. Because it's not man's show, it's God's. False teaching has no place in God's house. False doctrine ought not be here. We ought to try to leave some things at the door. I'm not going to get all into it this morning. But doors exist to keep some things in and some things out. At the end of the day, if it's not in this Bible, it shouldn't be in here. Whatever practices that might be. Miss Angie, why don't you come to the piano this morning as I'm done here. I didn't get done, but I'm going to be done. Lord willing, we'll try to finish it tonight. Brother Easton, what are you trying to say this morning? I'm trying to say that I'd love to see national revival, and it's very evident that we need it. I'd love to see church-wide revival and personal revival. I'd love to see it in any way that God saw fit to bring it. But just like revival in our own hearts, in our church, has a starting place, national or nationwide revival has a starting place. And it's going to be the Lord's house. It's going to be when God's people get back busy and get back excited, involved in the things of God. That's when this thing is going to change around. It's not going to be some savior in Washington, D.C. It's not going to be some great military commander in the Pentagon that goes overseas and does something wonderful. It's not going to be in the paycheck that we get. I'd love a raise too, we all would, but it ain't going to be in the paychecks we get. Any lasting change, any great national revival or improvement to our country is going to come through the way of God. And we need to do our part to begin to prep and get ready for that. Just like Hezekiah has lined things up to try to set the stage for Judah to completely turn around and make a 180. It says that their fathers turned away from God, and he's supposed to take them and try to turn them back to God. It's not an easy work. It takes him a long time. There's been many, many, many good churches that have been praying and trying for years for national revival. And I want us to be one of them as well, because it's important. If we want to see real change, it's going to be because God brings it. Let's all stand this morning as she plays.